I can do the mic. That's all right.
Here, he's coming. He's coming now.
We've all gotten way too quiet. Evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you tonight to the Katzenberg Center. I'd like first to thank our hosts, poet Meg Tyler, who has again allowed us to be part of this illustrious series, and Ha Jin, the Boston University Creative Writing Program Director, for hosting this reception here immediately, and for hosting a reception here immediately following the readings. Before we begin, I have to thank several folks who have been working long hours behind the scenes to make this evening possible. Frankly, I think it's something of a miracle that these excrescences, these mouthfuls of air we call poetry, somehow manage to transform into these material marvels commonly called books. The word itself seems unable any longer to do justice to what they represent, what they contain. Thanks to our editorial assistants, current and former, to Alicia Benz, Aisling Lynch, Scott Omont, Maya Geddes, and Lada Stitsevich for all the work they've been doing over the course of the year to make this program happen. A huge thanks to the writer Catherine Parnell, who lavishes her gifts on making sure that these books have readers across the country. Thank you too to Julia Juster, the editor of the Arrowsmith Journal. And of course, to Gerard, aka Jake Robertson, whose commitment, clarity, and talents as a writer he has put to use in producing these brilliant volumes, and who, like Pygmalion, sculpts the bodies capable of containing such volatile spirits. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you especially to the writers for inspiring this occasion. Now comes the part where I would normally deliver a brief homily about current events and tell you what to think of them. Instead, I've lately been on a Bertolt Brecht kick. And so I'd like to read you just the first part of a Brecht poem. Indeed, I live in dark ages. A guileless word is an absurdity. A smooth forehead betokens a hard heart. He who laughs has not yet heard the terrible tidings. Ah, what an age it is when to speak of trees is almost a crime, for it is a kind of silence about injustice. And he who walks calmly across the street, is he not out of reach of his friends in trouble? It is true, I earn my living, but believe me, it is only an accident. Nothing that I do entitles me to eat my fill. By chance, I was spared. If my luck leaves me, I am lost. They tell me, eat and drink, be glad you have it. But how can I eat and drink when my friend's food is snatched from the hungry, and my glass of water belongs to the thirsty? And yet I eat and drink. I would gladly be wise. The old books tell us what wisdom is. Avoid the strife of this world. Live out your little time, fearing no one, using no violence, returning good for evil. Not fulfillment of desire, but forgetfulness passes for wisdom. I can do none of this. Indeed, we live in dark ages. To brighten our day, we have some poets here. The first of our readers will be Tadeusz Dąbrowski, who will be introduced by Scott Omont. He'll be followed by Jiaxin Wang, introduced by Maya Geddes, and then I'll introduce Bruce Smith at the end. So, Scott, please.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here
another Arrowsmith event, and it's a great privilege and pleasure to get to introduce Tadeusz Dąbrowski and say a few words about his poetry briefly. I wanted to begin by drawing attention to the potential double genitive in the title of his work, The Seed of Man, where the of could operate in two ways. The most immediate and obvious suggestion is that it's referring to what man smells like, but it can readily be turned inside out and indicate the faculty of smell that man possesses, thereby converting a passive sense into a negative. Into an active sense, really. And now I don't know if that was intended by Mr. Dąbrowski or his translator, Antonia Lloyd-Jones, whether in the original or the English, but for me, there's a kind of frame or context shifting that seems to be characteristic of what occurs with the great economy of language, what occurs again and again in the movement of many of these poems. Deploying chiasmi and subtle transitions between, across, and through seemingly disparate realms, a Dąbrowski poem moves fluidly from the sacred to the profane, from the metaphysical to the everyday, or vice versa, always vice versa. Doing the laundry, walking down a street, eating breakfast, can suddenly tilt into a fundamental question of existence. Or just as suddenly, the big, serious, ultimate questions can be brought down to earth with a laugh, a shrug, a sideways glance. It's as if we're on a Mobius strip and we travel along what seems to be one plane, and without any clear leap, we find we have drifted imperceptibly to the other side of things. Dąbrowski's gift is that he can achieve this with clarity, wit, and a deep tenderness that never slides into sentimentality. As well as being a poet, Tadeusz Dąbrowski is an essayist, a critic, and the editor-in-chief of the literary bi-monthly Topos, and also a novelist. For the last 25 years, he has published many collections and anthologies of poetry in Poland. His poems have appeared also in the New Yorker, the Paris Review, Boston Review, Plowshares, Agni, Guernica, among many other important publications. And he has also been the recipient of many prestigious stipends, awards, and prizes, including Yaddo, the Omi International Arts Center, the Vermont Studio Center, the Koszylski Prize, the Hubert Burda Prize, and the Prize of the Foundation for Polish Culture, among others. And his work has been translated into 30 languages. Could you please welcome Tadeusz Dąbrowski?
Thank you so much for this great introduction. Thanks so much for bringing me here. It's a great honor to be here, to become a part of this Arrowsmith community of authors, readers, fans, because this publishing house seems to be independent from big money.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. Also from current trends, from political correctness, because as we all know, this independency is a fundament of poetic creativity. You know, poetry language should be always against power, sometimes against himself. So I hope you ask God to stay. To stay a kind of anarchist. Yeah. On American literary market is not the proper word when we talk about poetry. So, oops. This is my third most recent collection, The Scent of Man, gathering together poems published in 2 or 3 previous Polish books, so it's not one-to-one translation. But although I hope it's also kind of history, kind of narrative stuff, if you want to read it from cover to cover. But as every poetry collection, it's also to be read, like opened on any side. So, The Scent of Man, I'm traveling, as it was mentioned, with my little son on the cover. His name is Kazik. And this idea came just before publishing, because the title poem in this book is about a little bit another smell of homeless people. And I thought it will create a very nice tension between these two smells of innocent kid and homeless people, which is kind of scale of our humanity. Sentence. Okay, perhaps just at the beginning I will read one poem in Polish, just to make you feel the spirit of Polish language. And maybe the same poem, the initial poem, zdanie. To jakbyś się obudził w zamkniętej celi i znalazł w kieszeni kartkę, a na niej jedno zdanie w nieznanym ci języku. I wiedziałbyś, że to zdanie jest kluczem do twojego życia i do tej celi. I spędziłbyś dużo czasu, próbując zrozumieć to zdanie, aż wreszcie byś je pojął. Po jakimś czasie zrozumiałbyś, że znaczyło coś zupełnie innego i tak miałbyś 2 zdania, a potem 3, i 4, i 10, aż stworzyłbyś nowy język. Napisałbyś w tym języku powieść swojego życia i gdy byłbyś już stary, spostrzegłbyś, że drzwi celi są otwarte. Wyszedłbyś w świat, schodził go wzdłuż i wszerz, aż w cieniu wielkiego drzewa zatęskniłbyś za tamtym jednym zdaniem w nieznanym ci języku. Sentence. It's as if you'd woken in the locked cell and found in your pocket a slip of paper and on it a single sentence in a language you don't know. And you'd be sure this sentence was the key to your life, also to this cell. And you'd spend years trying to decipher the sentence until finally you'd understand it. But after a while, you'd realize you got it wrong, and the sentence meant something else entirely. And so, you'd have 2 sentences, then 3, and 4, and 10, until you'd created a new language. And in that language, you'd create the novel of your life. And once you'd reached old age, you'd notice the door of the cell was open. You'd go out into the world, you'd walk the land and the breadth of it, until in the shade of a massive tree, you'd yearn for that one single sentence in a language you don't know. Hall of Mirrors. It's very dangerous to know too many words. Each of them has its flip side, which also has its flip side, and so on ad infinitum. A mirrored hall of words. The sad side of happiness and the sad side of sorrow. Words with ears on the inside. A world thickly coated in panels of words is frightening. You don't know what's happening behind the wall or under the floor. Heel. A true story from the supermarket. Heel. It's not that I didn't like the taste of our bread. It's just that the slicer cut it into thick chunks because some old bread was lying in it. A heel that made the machine tread our loaf like a continuation of that loaf. To sum up, I was given, instead of a loaf cut into thin slices, several pieces, which I meekly took home because you don't waste bread, but it couldn't be divided into thinner pieces. They crumbled in our hands like a tree of life in a lumber mill. So it wasn't my fault, of yours, or even the fault of that alien heel which finally turned our bread into sawdust. Marriage poem. Boots. Boots is the title. Marriage poem is my footnote. Boots. I must take them to the cobbler. They've only got slightly worn down heels, says my mother, holding my winter boots from the days when I had a wife. Talking to a star, you're talking to yourself. Talking to the wind, you're talking to yourself. Talking to a stone, you're talking to yourself. Talking to yourself, you're talking to yourself. Hilltop. Returning to the very same place, let it be a hilltop with a view of the night city, where once you used to be, when your whole life still lie ahead of you, when everything was before, returning when it's already after, irrevocably, decisively. What a strange feeling it is, as if you had the gift of prophecy in a world without time. Bouquet. It's a poem about Paulina, who is my partner and mother of my two kids. And yeah, Paulina is this kind of person who catches me close to reality, and that's very important. When this poem appeared in New York, he just took a look preparing the dinner. And, oh, so nice that I'm this poem, you know? So she's totally unpretentious and simply, but in a good sense, a reader. Bouquet. Paulina, the gardener's daughter, cares about flowers doomed to die. If I bring her a bouquet, she frees it from the ribbons and gently places it in a hospice of a vase. When the flowers weaken, she trims their stems and plucks off their wilting leaves. She takes the dead ones to the compost, from the rest she forms a new bouquet. Thus disappear, in turn, poppies, animals, carnations, damnations, and forget-me-nots, until finally all that's left are Gysophila and Judas Pianis. Paulina, the gardener's daughter, sees the bouquet in the vase even when it's not there anymore. Letter. Yesterday I sent you a letter, and today on the phone you tell me you're pregnant. I pack up and return. You greet me at the airport. You're even lovelier than in my letter that's on its way to you. We build a house. Our child grows. Our parents shrink. Then a few years of sweat and tears in which we prudently pickle cabbage and gherkins for the ever colder days. In the coloring book of our life, there are fewer and fewer blank spaces. The crayons grow shorter. We try to be precise, but even so, we go over the lines. We busy ourselves with everyday matters, and our paths are ever deeper. They start to look like tunnels. Meanwhile, my letter is on its way to you. You will open it when it suits you best. Love letter. This time, this one is devoted to my little lady. Love letter. She cannot or simply will not go to sleep. if the raindrops of her fingers are falling on my brow like the vanguard of a storm that will, however, pass to one side, if the warm current of her breath is flowing into the lagoon of my ear, if even her big toe is stretching her in my direction like the nose of a mole. My tiny little woman, in some 16 years from now, another man will be lying next to you. I don't know if at that time I will still be alive, so I'm shedding this tear now. Snake. You surely all know and appreciate Zbigniew Herbert, Polish poet. So that's a poem in Zbigniew Herbert's mood. That's why I dedicated it to him, for Zbigniew Herbert's Snake. I read everything because I'm able to tell facts from fakes. There are texts one has only to flip over to the other side and they become honest. But mostly, reading demands strenuous labor, and then I sit with pencil in hand and draw a boundary line between paragraphs, across sentences. The line is usually long and narrow, resembling the snake from a card game in archaic cell phones. Quite often, wanting to separate truth from falsehood, I have to cut through the middle of a word. It takes a steady hand and precision tools. Let's call them the lancet of the intellect and the pliers of conscience. Sometimes, when separated from falsehood, the truth bleeds for a while and then dies. This one is for Adam Zagajewski, because Adam Zagajewski reminds me the times when literary journals meant something important and they appeared only on paper, and the paper had its smell and sound and color. The literary journal's farewell for Adam Zagajewski. I dreamed I had a craving for a literary journal, the way one craves a freshly baked loaf. I strayed around the local kiosks, but all they had was daily news and crosswords, until at last in a booth on the fringes of the world, a vendor with a voice as bittersweet as a song by Schubert, with the face of Adam Zagajewski, said to me, "Tadeusz, don't compare me with Schubert," and handed me a copy of a literary journal which stands still unopened on my shelf today, crammed between the books like a slice of bread. Squirrel, that's a poem which I would recommend to all the creative writing teachers, because it's kind of explanation how looks the poet's career. It has 3 stages. Squirrel. There are 3 stages in the life of a poet. First, he plays the role of a poet. I am a poet, he says to the mirror before each public reading, admiring his own nuts. The second stage is being a poet for real. He loses his stage fright. He starts to think of writing as a job. He follows 3 track turns in an office. He builds contacts, sees to business, cites his own experience, and willingly gives talks of the my ars poetica kind. One must admit that in this stage he is the wisest in his entire career, but also the dullest. The third stage relies again on playing the role of a poet, but not from the position of one who is not quite up to it, but one who can leave aside so-called literary life. He gains greater joy from things not said than from confidences. he's bored by tirades, he practices small talk. Only now does he feel truly free. He walks across the park and, smiling to himself, watches a poem. But just like a squirrel, it vanishes behind the bough of the tree. Okay. Why poetry is essential to you for life? Because it floats around the station like a pretty junkie whom you'd happy to screw, if not for your position. Or it laughs in your face like a child that you would pamper if it were yours. Or it causes trouble like a decrepit mother who can't remember a thing, who cramps herself, whom you'd bury alive in the woods, if not for your love for her and your position. Or it spoils your mood like a fortune teller who accurately predicts your wasted past. Poetry is necessary to you, so sometimes you can get out of yourself, see, and never return. The scent of men. They sat in my compartment, the couple of an indefinable age. They smelled of yesterday's and tomorrow's alcohol, cheap tobacco, and heroic helplessness. The women opposite me must have had lovely features before they were plowed up by a long gangbang with ethanol and acetaldehyde. Each individually did not yet sting. Only as a foursome did they release the odor of one bona fide bomb. The question flashed through my mind was, does humankind smell like? And would its clean part be able, like a gigantic bar of toilet soap, to smother the nasty stench of the rest? To shut their decay in an airtight coffin of perfume? And where, in the midst of all this, does my own smell float? And just at the end, a poem from my first collection, which is kind of advice how we should read contemporary poetry. Until it works. 1. Poetry is when you feel that something. Feel it? 2. If you don't, read the poem again. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wonderful reading. Sure. May I get it? Oh, okay. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. I'm Maya Geddes, and I had the pleasure of interning with Arrowsmith Press the past calendar year. So the Arrowsmith Press team is wonderful, and it was a pleasure to work with everybody. So part of it, I worked on Wang Jiaxin's book, so we'll be introducing him. It is my great honor to introduce Wang Jiaxin, a major voice in contemporary poetry, to you all this evening. The poems in his new book, At the Same Time, beautifully translated from the Chinese by John Balcombe, span work published from 1990 to 2025, and fittingly traverse both time and space. Born in Hubei province, Wang graduated from Wuhan University and served as a professor at Renmin University. Over the past 40 years, he has published nearly 50 books, which have been translated into many languages. He has been a poet in residence at the Dutch Literary Foundation and at the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa. He currently resides in New York. An esteemed translator, he has won many domestic and international awards. John Crespi, Director of Asian Studies at Colgate University, has said about his work, Wang Jiaxin has exerted a far-reaching influence over contemporary Chinese poetry not just as a poet, but also for his role as a critic and translator. Wang's poetic voice stands out for the gravity, clarity, and resolve with which it explores the individual's relation to history, destiny, cultural inheritance, and humanity. Wang belongs to the new generation of Chinese poets that emerged from the Cultural Revolution in the last century. His poetic mission, summed up, is the search for a poetic and literary creativity grounded in the artistic expression of painful marginalization, yet permeated with the desire to transcend suffering. His writing in the early 1990s influenced the poetry of an era. The Chang Wang KC International Literary Prize for Poetry noted, he shoulders the historical mission entrusted by history and maintains an independent attitude facing the power. He has been called another Wei Dao and the revelation of Chinese poetry. In his poems, Wang flits nimbly between celebrating the approaching gold of autumn to sharing the art of song with the darkling brush lighted beside the trenches. His poems observe and elegize and witness with a poet's eye. Even when I'm writing, I can't resist looking out at the street as if it's the indispensable blank space between two lines of verse, he writes. Wang leads us to see people papering the tree trunks with poetry and invites us to practice dreaming with our eyes open, as he writes. Often in dialogue with other poets, Wang engages in what Ilya Kaminsky describes as lyric inquiry. His poems address a literary community, including Mandelstam, Akhmatova, Du Fu, and many others. In an especially moving poem called A Note, Wang interrogates the role poetry plays in our lives, asking how to get by in days to come, how to live carefully. And in the same poem, he responds, make poetry a last testament, bequeathing love in each word. So tonight we get the privilege to hear Wang Jiaxin read some of his luminous poems. So without further ado, let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Arrowsmith Press. Thank you, my dear Oscar. Thank you so much for your appreciation, acceptance, and publication of my poetry. Thank you, my dear old friends, Professor Hajin. Thank you for your strong recommendations of my poetry. That's why I could to be a part of Arrowsmith community. As Tadeusz said. Okay, I will read some my poems here. As a Chinese poet, I'd like to read my poems in Chinese. Ask article and the poet Fang Sangyang to read the translations. The first poem was written 7 years ago in Beijing, where I live. 在你的房间里，在你的房间里，无论你的墙上挂的是一匹马，还是大圣的照片，甚或是一幅圣彼得堡的素描，都会成为一个自画像。而在你散步的街道上，无论你看到的是什么树，也无论你遇到的是什么人，你都会成为他们中的一个。你没有什么理由骄傲。
In your room, no matter what pictures you hang, be it of a horse, photos of the masters, or even a sketch of St. Petersburg, they all become your self-portrait. And when you stroll down the street, no matter what tree you see or what person you run into, you are just one of them. You have no reason to be proud.
So 1 year ago, when I visited Akhmatova Museum, St. Petersburg, I wrote this poem, or rather, I gained a perspective on our own history and dynasty. 在彼得堡，在阿哈马托瓦纪念馆，在这座被称为喷泉屋的4层楼上，仿佛穿过地狱的第4圈，来到一个半坡上回望。我看着窗外这个可疑的带风景的花园，我看到树林间掩映着一个鸟声雨药，我看到受难的母亲，倔强的儿子，被枪头推倒在地的父亲。我看到一场葬礼在树梢融化。我看到我前世的情人正坐在长椅上发呆。我看到人们又在树干上张贴诗歌海报。我看到从这儿出去的人一个个在胸前画着十字。我看到玛丽娜深陷的大眼睛在朝我凝望。我看到几个探头探脑的人，人躲在树丛后，衣兜里露出了爆花器。我看到一只黑鸟在草地上蹦跳，然后是另一只。我看到花园一角的那堆雪，多少年了，还未融化。我看到死魂灵们仍在鞭打自己。我看到树上的夏天和即将来临的金色秋天。我看到春天的草地上最悲痛的欢舞。我看到这一切，仿佛我在重新告别那在多年前我已告别的一切。我看着这一切，仿佛睁眼看着一个梦。我看着他，我感到在我右肩的背后还有一个人和我一起凝望，因为我盘旋而上，在一个时间之塔上，站在了阿赫玛托瓦的窗口。
From Akhmatova's window. In St. Petersburg, at the Anna Akhmatova Museum, on the 4th floor of the Fountain House, as if traversing the 4th circle of hell, and at mid-slope looking back, I look out the window at the garden with its unlikely scenery. I see a mythic harpy partially hidden among the trees. I see a suffering mother, a defiant son, and a father knocked to the ground with the butt of a gun. I see a funeral melt amid the tree branches. I see a lover from a past life still sitting dazed on a bench. I see people papering the tree trunks with poetry. I see people leaving, each making the sign of the cross. I see Marina's large sunken eyes staring at me. I see people still stealthily peeking from behind the trees, microphones in their pockets. I see a blackbird hopping on the grass, followed by another. I see the snow piled in one corner of the garden, still unmelted after so many years. I see spirits of the dead still flagellating themselves. I see summer in the trees and the approaching gold of autumn. I see the most sorrowful circular dance on spring grass. I see all of this as if bidding farewell again to what I parted from long ago. I see it all as if dreaming with my eyes wide open. I see it. I feel someone behind me at my right shoulder together with me, gazing into the distance, because I climbed the tower of time, spiraling upward to stand at Akhmatova's window.
Thank you, Oscar, for your wonderful reading. Although I don't know, the tower of time is going up or down. Okay, the next poem is about Lao Tzu. Yes, I know that Lao Tzu, Dao De Jing, is also very influential in the West world. But who was Lao Tzu? Unlike the later Confucius, Lao Tzu's life was not well documented. So even for us Chinese, Lao Tzu just a niece. Yeah. Who was Lao Tzu? So I wrote this poem.在老子故里，传说老子一生下来就老了。老子没有童年，除了孔子前来问礼，无人知道老子是谁。我们登上陡峭孤拔的老君台，也是在2500年之后。生逢乱世，行至函谷关，他交完他的税就走了。有人说他化为一只鹤，也有人说他至今仍滞留在丹麦。像布勒希特那样，一边听着从收音机传来的故国的嚎叫声，一边用一支无用之笔写下他幸福的流亡日记。
In the native place of Lao Tzu. Legend has it that Lao Tzu was born an old man. Lao Tzu had no childhood. No one but Confucius, who asked him about the rites, knew who Lao Tzu was. We climbed to Lao Juntai, high up and precipitous, 2,500 years later. Living in troubled times, he went to Hangu Pass, where he paid his toll in full and left. Some say he became a crane. Others say it held up in Denmark to this day. Like Bertolt Brecht, listening to the howl of his old country over the radio while using a pen of no use to write in his fortunate journal of exile.
So in recent years, I've written many fragments in the form of marginalia, in the form of marginalia. Not only these fragments, I think every poem we write is a kind of marginalia to this world. 旁注之诗 ，sorry， 旁注之诗，2021。2021年的杜甫，当代的一些诗人，也就是些鹦鹉吧，在斟酌了几粒稻米，而从我童年的那棵大树上，有凤凰飞来。布勒希特，不要往墙上钉钉子。布勒希特如是说，可我们又往墙上钉了那么多。 除了一些黑洞，什么也没有挂上。威米尔的小女孩，威米尔的小女孩，有那么多诗人赞美你耳垂下的那颗珍珠，但对于我来说，它的美，它所凝聚的光和重量，其实是一颗泪珠。这个夜晚，你死于远离莫斯科的小城耶拉布加，可是你依然在捷克的山谷间游荡。你的诗，鸟儿也会背诵。而现在你累了，你想坐下来抽一支烟，你能否找到一个可以借火的人？重读布拉格群岛，贴起力，编号，高音喇叭，探照灯。多年前读古拉格群岛，最吸引我的就是那些囚犯逃跑的故事。似乎说任立琴写下这些，就是为了让人们逃跑。现在我们还跑吗？还在跑。现在我们还跑吗？不跑了。
Marginalia, 2021. Dufu, 2021. A number of poets today, just like parrots, fight and peck over a few grains of rice. But from the big tree of my childhood, a phoenix takes flight. Bertold, hello? Did it just go out?
Yeah.
Okay, it just went out, so I'm gonna, there's nothing to do about it, Jake.
Now it's
No. That's okay, I can project.
oh no, it's on.
Is it?
Right, it's back.
Oh, okay, there you go. So, no doubt this had to do with the politics of Bertolt Brecht.
Oh well. It's
Okay.
gone again.
All right,
Project.
I will. Bertolt Brecht. No need to drive a nail into the wall. That's what Bertolt Brecht said. But we've already hammered in so many. We've hung nothing on the wall other than a few dark holes. Vermeer's girl. Vermeer's little girl, many poets have praised the pearl. Vermeer's little girl, many poets have praised the pearl hanging from your ear. But to me, its beauty, the fusion of light and weight, is that it's really a teardrop. Marina Tsvetaeva. You died far from Moscow, in the small town of Yelabuga, but you still wander in the mountains of the Czech Republic. Even the birds can recite your poems. But now you're tired. You want to sit and have a cigarette. But can you find anyone to give you a light? The Street of Crocodiles. I haven't read Bruno Schulz's The Street of Crocodiles, but I have seen that pair of wine-glass eyes feigning sleep. Fortunately, the sunlight here is nice, the streets tidy, and the business open as usual, except for several remote control garage doors that are still closed. Rereading the Gulag Archipelago. Barbed wires, code numbers, loudspeakers, searchlights. Reading the Gulag Archipelago several years ago, the stories of escaped prisoners fascinated me most. Solzhenitsyn wrote them down so that people might run away. Are we still running now? Yes, still running. Are we still running now? No, not anymore. What do you think?
It's okay.
Just see if there's
Yeah, those guys are touch. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for reading. No more running because we are so tired. Gulags are anywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
everywhere.
We're just running from one gulag to another.
One gulag to another.
So a few months ago, American poet learned that I was from China. She said it to me, "Oh, you are here. There's a dictator here too." Anyway. Okay. At the same time. So after reading of following poem, I asked article to read the translation because once he told me he was deeply moved or hurt by this poem. 与此同时，缅甸诗人克喜在刑讯室里被害，他还活着的器官被摘走。与此同时，我妻子新买来的那瓣蝴蝶兰开了，在风中微微颤抖。与此同时，我上网看成都49中坠楼事件的最新消息。官方通报称说，家属对调查结果无异议，那个高中生就那样死了。与此同时，我想写一首诗，不，我撕掉了一首诗。
Sorry. I know. Lloyd, you know microphones. All right. So this is the title poem, At the Same Time. At the same time, the Myanmar poet Ket Kai was tortured in an interrogation room. His living organs were removed. At the same time, my wife's recently purchased pot of moth orchids blossomed, swaying gently in the breeze. At the same time, I read the latest news online about a student who fell to his death at 49 High School in Chengdu. The official announcement is that the family has no objection to the outcome of the inquiry. And so died that young student. At the same time, I wanted to write a poem. No, I tore up the poem.
Good luck. Maybe it's too high for me. Huh? For you, it's right. Okay. So, at the same time, I remember poet Gander, Forrest Gander.
Forrest Gander.
Yeah. In his comments of my poetry, he use anthropomorphic words. All times are contemporaries. All times are contemporaries. So that's why I use the title of At the Same Time for my collection. I also want to tell American readers, don't think of me as a stranger from far away from another world. We actually live in the same time. We may share concerns, hopes, so many in common. So if you heard the next poem, you might think we are not only living the same time, we are also stay in the same poetry, 20s. Maybe we say the same 20s. This is a poem for Kharkov poet 扎丹，谢谢扎丹。悲伤时代的伟大诗人，给哈尔科夫斯基扎丹。悲伤时代的伟大诗人，谈论着希望，是为了使他们的防线不至于崩溃。他也不会放下他的诗，至少他可以像一只飞落在战壕边的黑色画眉，交流歌唱的记忆。
The great poets in sad times, for the Kharkiv poet Serhiy Zhadan. The great poets in sad times talk of hope to keep their lines of defense from collapsing. Nor does he give up his poetry, at least. He could share the art of song with the darkening thrush alighted beside the trenches.
The art of song, no, it's not the romantic song. Dark time. 在我们时代，上扬，在我们时代，a group fragments in our time， 在我们时代，一从前线回来的人说，你很难在战壕里找到一个拒绝乞道的人。真理，二，真理。在大炮的射程内，这是这些天人们最爱引用的一句话。没有大炮的诗人，你们的真理又在哪？三，在我们这个时代，有一些火炮以美丽的花朵命名，也有康乃馨，还有一些集中营隐藏在天仙般的白桦树林。像16一样团结的国家，由几十个沼泽构成的国家，靠坦克、靠无比天使来推进的国家，坐在龙椅上的国家，靠教会妖术来控制的国家，被吊在一棵歪脖子树上晃荡的国家，假这些股票大涨的国家。他被释放了，他们摘下了套在他头上的带子，他发现自己被带到一个初秋的野外，他可以张开双臂奔向自由了，但他不会知道，他是被扔在了一个美丽飘满了金黄叶子的布雷区。
In our time, and according to the note, there are lines from Anna Akhmatova. 1. Men back from the front say, in the trenches, it's hard to find anyone who refuses to pray. 2. The truth exists within the cannon's range. This is a popular expression these days. Poets without cannons. Where is your truth? 3. In our time, some cannons have pretty flower names, carnation, for instance, while some concentration camps are hidden in a fairyland of angelic birch trees. 4. a country as united as a pomegranate, a country composed of dozens of marshes, a country driven by tanks and the noseless slut, a country in the dragon seed, a country controlled by the sorcery of soul stealers, a country hanging, swaying from a tree's crooked neck, a country where prosthetic stock soars in value. 5. He was released. The sack covering his head was removed. He found himself in an open field in early autumn. He could run to freedom with open arms. What he didn't know is that he had been left in the middle of a beautiful, filled with drifting golden leaves, minefield.
Sure. I'm afraid I'm fine.白庙胡同怎么样？那就是
都你选。
啊，白庙。
有人不错，
有
人那个
有人什么？啊，有人。有人。有人说的太多，有人一声沉默，有人在奥斯维辛演奏小提琴，就像在实体上跳舞；有人在黑暗中保持着灼人的视力，面对强光，眼睛却瞎了；有人写灾难诗，也有人请我写，就像在实体上跳舞。有人在这走上红地毯，有人只如一条生命小径，满地松针比我们的眼睛湿润。
Someone.
Could you
Someone.
stand-
Oh,
God, it's weird. Grace, don't touch me.
someone.
No.
Someone talks too much. Someone lives in silence. Someone says playing a violin in Auschwitz is just like dancing on a corpse. Someone's eyes burn in the dark but are blinded by bright light. Someone writes disaster poems. Others ask me to do so. Just like dancing on a corpse. Someone walks down the red carpet again. Someone turns down the small path through the woods. Pine needles carpeting the ground, moister than our eyes.
Okay, last one. So on the dinner table, the poet Stephen, I am the Chinese translator of Portuguese. So I like to read one poem related to great poets. Portuguese. So, 致敬保罗·策兰，基辅在巴黎的展览，装载烧焦石头的手推车，玻璃柜里的集中营，铅灰色布满巨大伤痕的画布上，沾满枯褐色的止血蕨草。这是在巴黎，一个废弃皇宫内的大型展览。一个从第三帝国冒烟的砖窖里逃出来的画家诗人。 他是在向保罗·策兰致敬吗？7月的空气更撕裂了，白景圈里的冰融化。这里，胖人的水泥大街上布满影子，远处传来加油站排队司机的一声咒骂，而我的视线从带着弓形箭头的乌克兰地图上移开，我们看不见的黑色太阳群在我们上空燃烧。
For Porcelain, the Anselm Kiefer exhibition in Paris. Wheelbarrows loaded with fire-blackened stone, a concentration camp in a glass case, a lead-gray canvas covered with huge scars, brown bracken fern fronds stuck all over it. Paris, a large-scale installation in the Grand Palais Ephémère, a poet-painter who escaped from the smoking brick ovens of the Third Reich. Does he pay homage to Porcelain? The July air is hotter than ever. The ice in the Arctic Circle is melting. Here, the burning hot concrete avenues are filled with shadows. Drivers in line at gas station in the distance swear. I turn my eyes away from the map of Ukraine, filled with arched arrowheads of war. Black suns we cannot see burn in the sky above us.
So, not black suns, but black suns, small, terrifying than simple. It comes from Porcelain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for bringing the larger world to us here in Boston and recognizing that at the same time we are indeed all of us in the same trenches. It's a kind of startling moment in the world. Stress. Okay. Came alive for you, Bruce. Quote, I'm coming to understand the asymmetrical nature of art. No target, no trigger, no collateral damage. No one dies from it. One lives with it like a murmur, writes Bruce Smith in one of the square 10-line stanzas populating his newest book, while struggling to restrain the poet's barks and cries, which are anything but murmurs. The lines are also unusual in that they form a complete sentence when much of the time we're shaken by shrapnel syntax through which we race, careening wildly, trying to get our bearings. Because Smith is perpetually striving for the unsayable, which nevertheless needs to be said. Quote, March is half alive by Heraclitus, mud stuck, the same becoming, the same global financial uber alles abides. Indeed it does. No tear gas in the writer, no tear gas in the reader, writes Smith. One of America's most lauded poets, Smith, in his new collection, Hungry Ghost, plants one depth charge after another, offering us a language capable of conveying the radical underpinnings of our uncertain times. In Buddhist cosmology, hungry ghosts are beings with big bellies and tiny mouths whose appetites can never be satisfied. In Smith's poems, we find a vision of a nation composed of individuals always longing for more. Quote, I wanted more range, maybe more bliss, he writes. I've admired Smith's work since reading his first book, The Common Wages, which appeared in 1983. When I began reading the poems in this manuscript, Hungry Ghosts, I knew by the fourth poem that I had to publish it. that it is for the chance to publish such work I continue to edit. In a poem titled The Descent from the Cross, dedicated to George Floyd, Smith asks a timely question, quote, "Is it only for the long white body we can weep?" End quote. The poem ends with a damning accusation, quote, "We deny we love the manner of his murder." End quote. Smith's haunting meditations on ruptured narratives and bruised bodies nevertheless celebrates resilience and calls for nothing short of a transformation of both self and society. Smith has received the William Carlos Williams Award from the Poetry Society of America. His books have been finalists for the National Book Award, the Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Critics Circle Award. The poet Aga Shahid Ali had it right when he wrote, quote, "The secret should finally be out that Smith is, and for a long time has been, one of our finest poets." Bruce Smith, don't touch the mic.
All honor to Arrowsmith and everyone who's contributed to this press. Honored to be here. Thank you, Jake, for your work. Past selves brawl all night and set off the alarms, but silently and from inside the body. They recall the paper wasp nest he destroyed as a boy, and the buzzing of the avatars, Babylonian, savage, possessed. I can see to the bottom of this boy, his vacancy, his sham solidity. He's water, he's fire. He's stung, unforgiving me. He's you, let out in the world to become darling and delinquent and innocent, with a small mouth the size of a needle. You suck all the juice of the realm through. You should be undone and made to beg. What had wasps done but socialize the beauty? You will be sentenced to a life of paper and ink and American noise. In nurse slang, when a patient makes the O sign, the patient is sort of comatose. And the other sign in nurse slang is the Q sign. The O sign figures in this. The factors, the O, the orchid, the oblivion, the American hungers, as vague as drone targets. O in shadow, O in ozone, O in home, O in micro, macro. Poetry's O, the breath expelled in private to no one. It changes the nation the way a child's song changes the nation. It can't slow the fire though a trench is dug. The word, a control line, a backburn, a hot spot of the human, the secret saved or breached by the talking cure, the killing cure, a mouth in an O, an ode to nurses and their slang that alters pain, ode to the bus driver who sings, "Oh child, things are gonna get easier," as if he couldn't be trusted to speak. To speak is to insult. Are you in the mirror trying on an Anglo name? Are you in the layer of silver? Are you a lined, broken, deranged, floating in the vitreous humor? Are you stressed, unstressed? In the molecule, in the union? Are you in the pockets of the heteronormative cargo shorts? In the clusters of quarter notes? In the time signatures? Are you in the fire since your birth, or in the leisure? In the rhyme of room and storm? Or in or out of beauty/truth? Bound, processed, pressured? Are you in the child's cry, the regress, the wrongness? You needed me, Rihanna sings. Oh, you needed 6 syllables, me, overturning the agon of the blues. I need you, baby. I need you so bad. She turns around the IU like turning a gun into a shovel into a gun. What's a love song but an unreal gun with a real outcome? What's a song but a creole of need and word and nation? Whose nation? Whose word? Whose translation of Caliban and master? Whose wicked world? The slurs are snarled articulations of sex injury and glory. Put a God-sized hole in me. Lost the class war, won the big one. War was our 2 autumn, conspiring to load and bless, to o'erbrim and swell. It was what we made sacrifices for, so we could continue to dominate the airwaves and the storyboards and fall, Lord, it felt good, the sky licking our faces, from grace and occupy space and yell domino. We got to say we. We got to say what the colors were and are and the sizes of who gets to look back at whom and for how long and whistle. We got to say here, not there. We got to say who gets to insult beauty and what an event was and how much was enough. Enough was enough. Yet we wanted more and still more. We had to make trophies to celebrate our defeat of the dragons. And we had to make dragons. I turned my back on the color fields. I turned my back on the abstract New York, the blue-red adjustments and the inflamed men, the men inflated with trust and acts of God and gorgeous manly man drag. I turned my back on the furious magazines I could read, their reds and blues and frequencies I could use, to spin myself into an ecstasy, white dervish, in custody of a story that begins troubled with power, then the trouble is you, as you spin, a dance that ends with vertigo, hard light, violence. Thanks very much.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Congratulations to the authors. I would like to now announce the winners of the Derek Walcott Prize for Poetry this year. It was an even split between 2 writers, and each will receive the prize in full.
No.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. They'll be splitting the prize. Okay. Maybe we could have a cage match or something. So the prize was judged by Ijin Hutchinson this year, and the winners are Ceremony for the Nameless by Teresa Lola and The Shark Nursery by Maria O'Malley. I'd like to just extend my thanks again to the authors, to all of you, and to the entire Arrowsmith team. Oscar often likens us to like a messy kitchen, and it's true. So thank you, chef. Thank you, chefs. Our chefs will be selling books over here, so please, in an orderly fashion, go take a look, and we'd really appreciate it if you would take a book home with you today.
Take 3.
Yeah, take 3. Well, don't take them, 5 please. Thanks very much. Have a good night.
Further here. This is for